All right, on this page we can see that I have highlighted the empirical formula, which is right here. Empirical formula means these numbers right here on the bottom, these subscript numbers, are in the lowest whole number ratio. If we take this empirical formula and we multiply it by 2, so this 1 gets multiplied by 2 and this 2 gets multiplied by 2, we would actually end up having C2H4, which is a multiple of the empirical formula. This is a molecular formula. We can see the same thing if we multiplied it by 3. It'd be 3 times bigger. So instead of C1, we would have C3, and instead of H2, we would have H6. When we have an empirical formula, it can also be classified as a molecular formula. And sometimes they'll ask you if you have, which of the following is both an empirical and a molecular formula. It is always the empirical one, and it can also be molecular. The other thing to keep in mind when you're talking about empirical and molecular formulas is the gram formula mass. The gram formula mass also increases as a multiple of the empirical formula's gram formula mass. So if the empirical formula's gram formula mass is 14 grams per mole and C2H4 is twice the size of CH2, then the gram formula mass is also going to be twice as big. So you can see here I multiplied this empirical formula by 2 to get C2H4, and the gram formula mass of this empirical formula was also multiplied by 2 to get the molecular mass or the gram formula mass of this molecular formula. If I multiplied it by 3, then my gram formula mass would also be 14 times 3. If I multiplied it by 4, it would be 14 times 4. Let's say we come across a question that gives us the empirical formula. In this case, the empirical formula is right there, CH4. And it tells us that the molecular mass, or the gram formula mass, or the molar mass, is 64 grams per mole. And they want to know what the molecular formula is. Well, we can start writing out the empirical formula and calculating the gram formula mass by making a list of the elements, calculating how many of each of the elements we have, which is right here. There's 1 carbon and there's 4 hydrogens. We can now look at the molar mass of each of the atoms, so 12 for carbon and 1 for hydrogen. So we know that the gram formula mass of CH4 is 16. Well, we can now take the 64, which is up here, 64 grams per mole, and if we divide that by 16 grams per mole, we will know that the molecular formula that we're looking for is 4 times larger than CH4. And as we saw from the previous slide, the molecular mass, which is the 64, correlates to how many times bigger the empirical formula will be. So instead of CH4, it would be CH4 times 4, so it becomes C4H16. And that is our molecular formula that has a molar mass, or a gram formula mass, of 64 grams per mole.